New video of another deadly traffic stop coming to light tonight. It shows the tense moments before Los Angeles police shot and killed Mario Sanchez last month. The shooting still under investigation as the family of the man who was killed calls for justice. Eyewitness News reporter Tim Pulliam in studio now with the new details. Tim.
Mark, tonight this newly released video may raise more questions on if this police shooting was justified. I have to warn you, it is disturbing. This police body cam video shows cops spraying bullets into a man they think is armed on the side of an LA street. Let's roll it back. From this angle, you don't see Mario Sanchez's final moments on an LAPD body cam, but you hear them. LAPD releasing the video Friday.
So there's a little bit of advice, at least for me, when cops pull you over and then you start, as the tape appears to show, you start rolling expletives out there, and you roll out of the car and you start to reach for something out of your pocket and it looks like you're pointing at them, most likely you're going to get shot. See what else we have. Oh, fights at the madhouse. Here we go. Let's see if we can.
He picks up the win with relative ease and had a fast car in these QRCH Backman Refrigeration Street Stocks series. And now Zach Staley's getting out of the car. Here we go.
Staley's out of the car. Staley's out of the car. He falls out of the car. He's got the helmet off. Oh.
It gets better after this. That's the first driver out of the car. You see the official at Bowman Gray Stadium trying to restrain the man. Now the other dude gets out of the car and it's full on. He's going to go after the dude on that. This is a typical Saturday night at the Madhouse, Bowman Gray Stadium. Let's see what else is up on next on the hit parade. Ooh, it's a nasty barbecue of a car brought to you by Inland Wire in Rialto. You see the flames going up. And that the intense fire car was burnt to the ground, I'll get it out, in a park in good old Rialto. This cat, the whole Carmelo Anthony thing, we'll get into it later, where he stabbed the young man down in Texas. Black teenager stabbed a white teenager. This cat, he's really looking for it.
All of the people who are against Carmelo Anthony, me as a black man in America, white people, I'm telling you and I'm telling you now, you ever even think to approach me, bully me, harass me, think you're gonna be with your twin brother or twin whatever, and do anything to me, I too will poke you as
oh yeah, Mr. Nose Ringer, we're all scared of you looking badass on your little TikTok video. Let's meet up, bud. Getting tired of this stuff. Donald J. was on a roll at the Easter egg roll today at the White House with First Lady Melania.
I'm really into this. No, I'm really into this. It's tough though. We don't have a white crayon. What am I going to do? Leave it wet, I guess. Leave the whole thing white. Okay, smile up there, kids.
Smile up there, kids. That's our 45th and 47th president. I'm really into this. Notice Donald J. is not sniffing the kids, doing inappropriate touching like maybe number 46 used to do all the time. That's why almost every American is so proud to have Donald J. Trump as their president. Fiery crash, Studio City, where the driver dies. Here we go. Let's see if we can.
That charred vehicle that was involved in this fiery fatal crash overnight. Let's take a look at some video from the crash that happened this morning around 3:15. The CHP says that white sedan slammed into the center divider and burst into flames on the 134 just before the Vineland Avenue exit.
Nasty, nasty. Another one, fire. What is with the... I mean, it just seems like we're in a chaotic period right now. They're shooting at the helicopters, killing... Cops killed him. We'll get to that in a minute. Of that. Oh, we did that. The tree, the California chainsaw murderers of trees. And nobody's seen this. This is absolutely fabulous. Unbelievable. In today's market, nobody
carelessly cut down overnight, and no one seems to know who's behind it.
The senseless destruction is causing many people to turn to social media to voice their disappointment. The vandals targeted trees lining Grand Avenue. Now the city and the LAPD are trying to determine who did it and why.
What do you mean, who did it? With all the cameras going on and people with their cell phones, nobody saw anybody hacking down a bunch of trees in downtown LA. That place is just a 1,000% absolute dumpster fire going on. Of course, they're going to try. The mileage tax is back. Remember, we fended it off about what? Just before COVID. Where it probably met Freddie B down there, 6 or 7 years ago when they were trying to do all that. Here's more.
We start tonight with new details on a new way to pay for California roads. With revenue from the gas tax dwindling, Californians could be charged for every mile they drive. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee.
That is a no-starter. I mean, if they're totally eliminating the gas tax in AB 32, pick one tax, California. Which one do you want? That's it. Back in the day, we just had the gas tax, built the finest freeway system from 58 to 74 in the entire frickin' world. No bonds, no nothing. Pick one, and that's it. That's what you get. Also, we need to go back to eminent domaining and getting construction costs down, but that, as they say, is a story for a different day. Get on the right one. More tax grabs going on, if that didn't, for your non-viewing pleasure.
A $1 billion tax hike proposed in last night's State of the County address.
El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells said the tax would hurt the San Diego real estate market.
I don't think anybody is going to have their life improved by having a tax on the ability to sell your house.
$1 billion tax.
So down in San Diego County, they want to, when you sell your home, they want to tax you on that. On top of these guys never quit. And why I say that? Just because it may be in San Diego County, they're listening in Riverside, Los Angeles, Solano, and every other county.
An illegal alien from Guatemala charged with raping a child in Massachusetts. An MS-13 gang member from El Salvador accused of murdering a Texas man. A Venezuelan charged with filming and selling child pornography in Michigan. These are just some of the heinous migrant criminals caught because of President Donald J. Trump's leadership.
Yes, that's Kristi Noem of the criminals that are going on with all the harangue about the dude down there in Venezuela. Hey, he's a Venezuelan resident. He's in Venezuela's control. It's up to Venezuela to do what they are going to do, just like Kristi Noem and Donald J. Trump and Tom Homan. We are getting rid of the criminals and terrorists in our country, as we should. Let Venezuela deal with their trash. We'll deal with ours. Or the trash that's been dumped on us way too many times. Here's a long jumper boy stealing the girls' chance at competing. Again, this nonsense must stop immediately. Shooting, suspect crashes at the end of a police chase on the 101. See, here we go.
Night after a police chase ends in a crash in Boyle Heights, LAPD says they were pursuing a shooting suspect when that suspect crashed at 4th Street and the 101, hitting another car. 2 people were hurt and the suspect was arrested.
Here we go, more shooting suspects, cop shooting, crashing, cars burning. Oh, it gets better than this. Dude shoots at a helicopter? Well, again, you shoot at a helicopter when the cops come out. As in this man learned, they're going to shoot and kill you. Here we go.
In the San Fernando Valley, where police shot and killed an armed suspect.
This is a live look right now at the scene in Reseda. A heavy police presence on Reseda Boulevard near Victory Boulevard. The LAPD says that they received calls about an armed man. This was around 6:30 p.m. Responding officers saw the suspect run into a nearby apartment complex and fire shots at a police helicopter overhead. Officers approached the suspect and soon opened fire. That suspect was killed in the shooting. No officers were hurt during the violent confrontation.
Good. And that guy, let's get back to that guy will not have to worry about anything because he is dead. So you shoot at a chopper and the cops show up, they may shoot at you and kill you. More in this whole Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff for Donald J., has this stuff right. Here we go.
Because of the policies of Joe Biden, there aren't enough volumes that could fit into a library to calculate the carnage that has been inflicted by the Democrat Party's policy of open borders. We can spend the rest of our lives trying to document those harms. Where does our whole country go to get repaid for all of the wealth, all of the prosperity and security that has been stolen from us by decades of uncontrolled illegal mass migration?
Yeah, we need reparations, as Stephen Miller is suggesting, from all these countries violating the trade agreements they signed, dumping illegal alien criminals and everything else on. If there's going to be reparations, whether they're tariffs or whatever, it's from the other countries that owe us for the havoc they have perpetrated on us. You know, we brought that IE drummer, Inland Empire drummer, who is part of the indie band over there in Canada. What is it? The New Pornographers? He was arrested, various crimes and sexual type crimes against children down in Rancho Mirage, or somewhere down there in the lower desert. But you know, your band name's the New Pornographers? Well, the New Pornographers issued a statement. Everyone in the band is absolutely shocked, horrified, and devastated by the news, the changes against Joe Siders, and we have immediately severed all ties with him. Our hearts go out to anyone who's been impacted by his actions. Again, your actions, or your title of your band is the New Pornographers, Phonographers, or whatever. Jeez. Harupa Valley cops were on the job, rightfully so. They found this nice gentleman who was tagging the wall there in Harupa Valley and arrested him. So we will follow that case, but I think most of the residents of Harupa Valley and surrounding areas were extremely glad they did. Rialto cops are trying to identify this gentleman, 48-year-old Clinton Robinson, who was driving a blue BMW and suspected or alleged trying to lure young adults or possibly children into his car. So if you've seen this cat, like there's a bigger picture of him please let, and there's the back of his head there, please let, or you have any information, let Rialto Police Department know. Machete-wielding son attacks dad, cops say, Lake Matthews Station. Deputies found the suspect and arrested him on attempted murder charges. Another grisly crash. DUI expected in a Riverside fatal crash down there. Please don't drink and drive. 22-year-old Xavier Cox was found dead with multiple gunshot wounds on Delmer and Bay Streets. A dozen cops were showing up on that one. That's my report, because that's about 2 blocks down from the studio. Saw 9 million cop cars going by. I believe that was Saturday on that. But they did detain a suspect at the scene, but later Sheriff's Department released him. So they said they turned it over to the district attorney. So we'll see what they do with the case. Another one, Beaumont fatal on the 60. Appears a pedestrian bicyclist. There was a bicycle by there, but wandered into the path of a car on the 60 freeway, killing the pedestrian bicyclist or whatever he was doing wandering on the freeway. The motorist stayed at the scene. Didn't seem like any charges were pressed, so, well, anybody can do what they were. Video of that Upland Target seems like it was ransacked by a family. Here's some of the video that was released on this. Out there. Find some more of it. Possibly some of the stuff going on, but that was from KTLA Fine. I guess you could make the joke, the family that ransacks together. Well, anyway. Fatal motorcyclist. Noel Velez, 47, a resident of Colton, perished in a crash there on 700 block of Mill Street. So rest in peace in that, and especially if you're a motorcyclist, ride very carefully, and if you're driving, pay close attention to motorcyclists, because you got them outweighed about 5, 6, 7, 10 times to 1. That funky slide guitar music. It comes in every Monday through Friday, live at almost 5. Evil P Network, Rumble, X. All those good things, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe. Of course, 5:30 or a little after, we'll join the Mighty Mitt KMET 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire, as we say on the aforementioned AM band. Hopefully Dr. Kelly Victory will be calling in too, as she usually does on a Monday, and we'll get her insights into everything. Wild weekend going on all over the place. Man, the crazies were out. Had that dash cam, body cam footage from the cops. Hey, like I said, if you're, you get out of the car, you start MF and the cops or whatever he was doing, then you come out and pull something out of your pocket and appear like you're going to point at them, you are probably going to get shot. It's just one of those things. They're not playing around. They want to go home. They want to live another day. They're not playing when you get to this stuff. And That gentleman learned it. Then the dude shooting at the helicopter, and the cops show up and dust him. We got some really weird stuff. Then the guy in downtown LA sawing trees down, whatever, in the parkway, and nobody catches it today. Man. Pope Francis passed away this morning, one day after Easter. I guess today is Easter. I don't know. I don't follow those things that close. But I guess Easter Sunday was yesterday. I guess this is Easter. Trump. I'm really into this with the kids over there at the Easter egg roll at the White House, Melania reading to them. The White House is back to normal instead of sniffing Creepy Joe at the deal, just like what Stephen Miller was on it. Let's get to reparations. Maybe we'll delve into that either today or tomorrow. The whole deal with this stuff, and I'm getting bored to tears over this whole deal with Venezuela. Hey, the dude is a Venezuelan or whatever citizen or MS-13. He's under Bukele's control. He's not a citizen of the United States. Well, let's get this clear. Everyone in the United States soil boundaries, 48 states, Alaska, Hawaii, has limited due process constitutional protections. Citizens of the United States have 111% constitutional protections. The reason is, and as we say, because if you're in the United States and you're not a citizen, the government just doesn't have the cops or anybody just doesn't have the right to come in and say, okay, you know, we don't like Roy's wearing a Foghorn Leghorn t-shirt or Hawaiian shirt. We'll just hang him in the public square, as an example. Not to be wearing Foghorn Leghorn Hawaiian flowery shirts. You have limited due process, constitutional protections, 14th Amendment, where due process comes in, which means you have the right to have a judge, or you have a right to adjudicate, or you have a right to have a hearing. They just can't arrest you for no reason. Well, they can arrest you for no reason, but then they got to back it up. That's why you have due process. Again, another side note, like the dude who pulled out found out to be a cell phone at the cops after he was cussing them out, and they had went through traffic stop or whatever, and they wound up filling him full of holes. But again, to ask any cop has the right, tell a cop, oh, you can't arrest me. Oh, yes, he can. If he's a sworn officer, I know at least in the state of California, I don't care. You could be a sworn officer for the Eureka Police Department if they got one. They can come down here to Riverside and put the cuffs on you. Anywhere in California's jurisdiction, if you're a sworn officer, which means you have the power to arrest, they can arrest you they have the power to arrest and take you downtown to the holding cell, kind of like they did to the dude that was involved in the shooting here in Moreno Valley, but then they released him. They can violate every constitutional right you have, yada, yada, yada. That's what due process is. If you feel you were arrested unlawfully or illegally, then you can go before a judge and plead your case. Same thing with if somebody charges you with a crime, or if the district attorney charges you with a crime, or the U.S. attorney, Bill Saley, you have the right to discovery, due process, right to a judge. You have a right to discovery, know all the evidence. In fact, they're compelled to turn over all evidence, even if it works in your favor, as they call exculpatory. You want to use the fancy lawyery term. So, this is the part that goes through that. That's why I'm getting, well, more. I mean, there's nothing to it. The dude, the Venezuelan, if he's MS-13 gang member, is down there in Bukele's control. He's in Bukele's control. We have no right. Trump can ask. Trump has no right, no legal authority that I've heard of. No lawyer give legal advice, but I've heard of. Turley's been on, heard him. Trump has no authority to go down there and get that guy once Venezuelan or whatever citizen's been transferred, deported out of the country. They're no longer on our radar screen. Under our control, under subject to our laws and jurisdictions and everything else. So let's quit arguing about it. You can boo all you want. Cry crocodile tears. Do whatever you got. But it ain't going to make a hill of beans of difference. You know, they can sit on the Sunday shows or PMSNBC or whatever, and it ain't going to change ish. So why waste the time? At least that's the way I would look at it. I think that's a logical way to look at it. Instead of haranguing and this and we're going to do and, oh, Trump can get him back and all this other stuff. I want to get more into this is very intriguing to me. We ran a little bit on the intro. Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff from SoCal. Like he said, the Democrats, if you're still worried about this MS-13 gang member, Venezuelan or whatever citizen he is, over there, I think Stephen Miller is bringing out 1,000% the right deal. We should have reparations. China, Venezuela, I don't care, India. Well, let's put it this way. You don't want to negotiate fair trade agreements. And that's basically what a tariff is. A tariff is reparations to the United States citizens for not abiding by the agreements, treating us unfairly. Here's Stephen Miller again. Well, let's see. Here's Stephen Miller now.
Do you know how many stories I could tell you of children that were trafficked across the border and raped because of the policies of Joe Biden? There aren't enough volumes that could fit into a library to calculate the carnage that has been inflicted by the Democrat Party's policy of open borders. We can spend the rest of our lives trying to document those harms. Where does our whole country go to get repaid for all of the wealth, all of the prosperity and security that has been stolen from us by decades of uncontrolled illegal mass migration? Because we all deserve reparations for what has been stolen from us. It is a tragedy that defies our ability to even describe it.
Yes, it defies our ability to even describe it. Agree 9,000%, and we do. We deserve, the United States citizens deserve reparations for all this harm, these not abiding by the free trade, even as, and I didn't agree with NAFTA and GATT and WTO and all that other stuff. They've even violated those agreements, even as stupidly as one-sided we made them to everyone else. Canada, Mexico, China. It's maddening at a point that we're really into this kind of stupididio. And I share the same frustration that Stephen Miller does. When do we get repaid for the harm that's been done to the 350 million people in the United States of America, whether it's illegal immigration, the trade, COVID, the $250 billion in the Ukraine war that we've been fleeced out of, and we could go on and on and on. It's hemorrhaging. Another one that's driving me nuts. And again, like the Democrats, hey, I think they're doing champion the MS-13 wife beater gang member, please. The other one is to deal with Carmelo Anthony that stabbed that poor young gentleman down in Texas. And again, the same yo-yos are coming to his, well, you saw at first a lot coming out in defense of Carmelo Anthony, the black teenager who stabbed that poor unfortunate individual who lost his life. But then you got jackasses like this that come on, like, oh, with their little nose rings, their little whatever, piercings on their lips. And they're going to come up with tripe like this. It's absolutely ridiculous. Here, hopefully, we go.
Who are against Carmelo Anthony? Me as a black man in America, white people, I'm telling you and I'm telling you now, you ever even think to approach me, bully me, harass me, think you're going to be with your twin brother or twin whatever, and do anything to me, I too will poke you as well. Straight to the heart. And that's on self-defense. This is not the Jim Crow era. This ain't 400 years ago. This ain't 1619. This ain't back in them days. Y'all don't want to end up like Austin. Leave black people alone.
Oh, does he talk really badass while he's sitting behind his little keyboard with his nice little nose ringies and his nice little earringies and whatever the hell he's trying to pull here. So, oh, he's going to poke anybody in the heart that ain't sticking up for the black dude who said it was self-defense, is why he stabbed the other innocent victim in this, in the heart. Been well reported, lots of reports, he's been carrying a knife, been a problem at school. And then this clown over here, oh, if you're going to say anything to me, this ain't Jim Crow in 400 years, stick it right up your ass, buddy. Where do you want to meet? I'm getting flat frickin' tired of these Jesse Jackson wannabe, think they can mouth off or think they're tough guys. Name the spot, MFer. Yeah. show you how Jim Crow or whatever you think's going on that hasn't been going on, that's been jacked up in your head. Well, it's about time we start straightening some of this stuff out. Just like we're getting rid of the illegal criminals and gang members and trying to make our streets and communities and lives safer. So that little jackass has got the challenge. He wants a challenge, then let's throw down. Simple. Back up your play, son. You're threatening, because if you're threatening to stab people, you will go to no lengths. This ain't cutesy, it ain't funsy, it ain't, this is reality, son. You get on, when you're making threats like that, whatever social media, Bluetooth or whatever, again, beware of this one. We ran a little bit. Carl DeMille put it out. It's a CBS 8 report down in San Diego. The mileage, they've been floating this. Remember, it was about 1819. They were floating the mileage tax. They did run a pilot program, so we got some volunteers. I remember, and like I say, this is probably when I first met Freddie B. We were down there, and a bunch of us they had a meeting from the state, but it was down at the County Board of Soups, downtown Riverside. And the big uproar, and it kind of died down, and then COVID came on. Now, I'm not 100% opposed to a mileage tax, but that's if we pick one. Mileage tax, if we're going to go with a mileage tax, then we're eliminating AB 32, the climate change, all the other garbage, sales tax, gas tax has increased 24 times, or all the other charges, gone. In fact, I would even be more inclined to support that. We eliminate the 23 taxes or whatever that's on there, just replace them with one. Simple. What we did back in the day, 58 to 74, when Pat Brown and Ronald Reagan were governor for 16 years, Democrat and Republican, built the finest freeway system, road system in the entire frickin' world, in the history of the world, just on the gas tax. No bonds, no other fees, no other this. 100% on the gas tax. When they decided to put a road in, they stuck it in there. Didn't cost $87 million a mile either. Here's more from the CBS 8 report. Here we go.
Trans is now studying a per-mile road charge applied to all drivers across the state to help fund highway maintenance that's now funded through the excise tax on fuel. And while the state says this new mileage tax would replace California's gas tax, not everyone's convinced.
CBS 8's Richard Allen has more on the pilot program that just wrapped up.
Well, that's right. Currently, about 80% of California's road and highway repairs are funded through the state's 59-cent a gallon gas tax, the highest in the nation. But with more drivers now switching to electric vehicles, the state is getting less and less funding for those repairs, now leading to this possible mileage tax for all drivers.
Let's just stop right there for a sec. The 60 cents they're charging just on the California gas tax is probably only about 30% of the total taxes that are charged in a gallon of gas. We're up to over about $2+ a gallon, and all the taxes, fees, and everything else. Call them whatever you want. Charges by the government. State, federal, local, whatever. No, let's eliminate it all. Let's eliminate the AB 32, the charges to the refineries. All the other stuff. California is probably collecting about $1.50 a gallon, just the state of California.
And not surprisingly, not all drivers are on board.
No, not for it. Sorry, I'm a hard no on everything. I gotta save my money where I can.
San Diegan Gail Hoffalina wants to put the brakes on any possible per-mile road charge for drivers, an idea the state's now exploring, as explained in this video released by Caltrans.
It's an innovative way to collect funding for roads and highways based on how many miles you drive instead of how many gallons of gas you buy. Because as we move toward a zero-emission future, the gas tax won't last forever.
Caltrans just completed a pilot program to test out a road charge system, including a flat per mile fee of 2.8 cents a mile, as well as an individualized fee based on a vehicle's fuel economy. The pilot also tested different ways of reporting mileage, including odometer readings or a special plug-in device.
The purchasing power of the fuel tax, which is the main way that we finance transportation infrastructure, has been steadily declining.
But not everyone's giving this potential new charge the green light.
Of course, no one's giving, not everyone is. Like the first young lady said of that when they interviewed her, I'm against it. I can't take this anymore. You know, they're sticking you at every possible turn. I'm going to be in the vagrant housing list, EBT cards, and everything else if you keep this crap up. Carl DeMaio is up next on the CBS 8 report out of San Diego. Here, hopefully we go.
A mileage tax in California is a money grab. Let's just be very clear.
San Diego Assemblymember Carl DeMaio led the charge against a proposed local mileage fee a few years back and says he's just as opposed to this one, which he says could cost the average Californian $900 to $1,200 per year.
Unfortunately, a lot of working families, poorer families, have a longer commute, so they'll actually pay a higher mileage tax. It's very regressive. It's unfair.
DeMaio also says he's skeptical this mileage tax would replace the fuel tax, as the state has indicated.
That's nonsense. These people will never give up a tax. They're just going to add an additional one on.
And it would be up to the state legislature to decide whether this road charge would replace the fuel tax.
And so now there are some merits to it. So let's say you have 3,500-pound car. 3,500 to 4,000-pound car. One gets 20 miles to the gallon, one gets 35. They're using the same amount of road. They're going to do the same amount of wear and tear. The one guy, if you're paying by the gas tax part, or that, is going to pay less than his fair share. Now, what I would say was, instead of 100% opposing it, okay, let's start with state of California. Let's just use a round number. $1.50 a gallon. State of California, and that's pretty close. You got $1.50 a gallon that the state of California is collecting for every gallon of gas sold, every gallon of diesel sold in California. So let's cut that down. Let's just go down to $1 a gallon. Let's 33% cut. Then figure out the mileage tax to raise that revenue, or where it's going to raise the revenue. And there are some merits to, if you go to a mileage tax, it will be fairer. And then again, you got electric vehicles. They're not, they're using the roads, wearing them out, need maintenance, more of them, and they're not paying anything. So there is going to have to be a retooling. Just how do you do it? Like I say, drop the tax only that amount of money, no AB 32s going to all these other vagrant housing and everything else. Whatever money is on the gas tax gets spent on roads, period. If you jack it to $3 a gallon, then, or whatever, or $27 a mile, then that money, regardless, doesn't matter if California is completely bankrupt, because you cannot give them any outs for any reason, because all you got to do is put a pinhole in the dike, and these guys and politicians in less than 30 seconds will blow the whole damn thing up to smithereens. So there does need to be a conversation about how we're going to fund road maintenance.
Also, the results of Caltrans
and road construction in California in the future. The convoluted disaster we have now is just going to get worse. So it's behooves all of us to get in the conversation of it and do it. But like I say, let's frame the deal. Okay, whatever. Let's say they're collecting $10 billion. Well, it's got to be more than that. Let's say they're collecting $30 billion off the $1.50 they're doing now. Let's cut it down to $20 billion. Whatever. Go to mileage, whatever parameter works out the fairest for everybody who's using the roads. Because then you could say, okay, classify it by size of vehicle, weight of the vehicle, kind of like you do your weight fees and everything else. Trucks are obviously going to have more wear and tear on the roads, need more capacity because instead of being 17 feet long, they're 80 foot long or whatever. You got a box van truck that's 30, 35 feet long, and extra weight. So again, there is a parameter for that. I believe, we do need to overhaul it. We need to cut the tax down, get a fairer system for everybody, and then everybody would be happy. And then, like I say, whatever money is raised off of that, mileage tax, I don't care, fuel tax, whatever, one tax, there be no zip-zada, no nothing, cannot be spent for anything else but for road maintenance and road construction, period. Want to catch more of the Kristi Noem video? She had we ran the first part on the intro where she's going through all the ones in our country illegally that are gang members committing crimes that we have been deporting. What's the number? Millions, tens of millions, I think it is. Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, deported. Not a peep. Trump, so far, the Trump administration, Kristi Noem, and the crew have only deported 100,000. And you'd think this was Operation Wetback back in the Eisenhower days. You'd have thought all hell was breaking loose.
Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Under President Trump, attempted illegal border crossings are at the lowest levels ever recorded, and over 100,000 illegal aliens have been arrested.
We have the lowest illegal border crossings ever recorded. And as she said, 100,000, only 100,000 deported. Millions back in Operation Wetback, and that's what they called it back there in the Eisenhower days. 52 to 61. 53 to 61. Again, 10 million, I'm going to say off the top of my head plus, between W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Hussein. Where was all the griping and complaining and, oh my gosh, world's coming to, due process, and we got to get the illegal criminals back in the United States. Hell, they're not committing enough crimes. Not enough crime going on around here. It's sometimes you got to wonder.
If you are here illegally, you're next. You will be fined nearly $1,000 a day, imprisoned, and deported. You will never return. But if you register using our CBP Home app and leave now, you could be allowed to return legally. Do what's right. Leave now.
Do what's right. Leave now. That's real simple. Extremely simple. Follow the law. I wonder if the dude who got shot by the cops, if he would have complied with the law like you're supposed to, comply with the officer's request, he would probably still be on the top side of the grass. Just like the ones in our country illegally. What the dude they're griping about in El Salvador has been here, 20, 30 years? Same with Yusardre Perez, the councilwoman down there in Coachella. Her husband's been in this country illegally for 25, 30, 35 freaking years. You ain't been able to figure it out yet.
Under President Trump.
It's astonishing sometimes, really. That we get ourselves into these pickles. And they're asking, please follow the law. Go back to your country. You register on the app. Then you can apply legally for one of the 1 million slots we facilitate per year for people to come into the country, or whatever Congress might decide. Well, I'll be cool. Everybody will be happy. Or at least complying with the law. That's what you see. Is it too much to ask? To just follow the law. Murder. That fugitive from Southern California was arrested. Here we go.
Easter and a community rebuilding. Members of the Palisades and Altadena communities coming together to celebrate the holiday and their churches reopening.
And I've been having lots of lovely stuff coming in with all the technical stuff. Anyway, that fugitive that killed a officer down there has been arrested and detained up there, so that's good news. Another one, criminal in the pipeline. And none too soon. Man, again, there's a lot to look forward to, even though we do face a lot of challenges. And the nutcases are not going to give in easily, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and all this stuff, again, is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but do we will. We'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET, hopefully here in a few seconds. Hopefully Dr. Kelly will call in and we'll get her take on some of this stuff going forward. Because man, oh man.
Oh, 1 minute, Roy.
You got it. As sometimes as mind-numbing as it can be, we do look forward to the progress we're making on a lot of these other things going on. So it's all not doomsday, as those who thought they were in charge 3 months ago are now have a hissy fit.
30 seconds.
And we can't get enough of it. I want to get into those. This is a good thing, and we'll probably get to it tomorrow. Sheriff calls a father a hero for shooting at a man who broke into their kid's bedroom. That's what gives you hope on this stuff. And many other things that we got.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
There you go. We'll be joined.
Those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Not necessarily those of the
There's that. Okay, so guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience in the Evil Epi Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, all that stuff. Check us out, subscribe on that. Cops shooting, guys shooting at helicopters, cops shoot him. Moreno Valley, dude shoots at a guy several times, kills him. Cops say, hey, they detained him, but they didn't arrest him. The guy going through cutting down trees in downtown LA in the Parkway, out in the open, and nobody's seen anything. That's almost unfreaking believable. In today's world, with cameras everywhere, and you can't find, you can't hardly walk outside your house. Even if you're inside your house, somebody's filming or taping or something. Dude could cut down trees right on the side of the street and nobody saw anything. That used to be the way kind of things were. That kind of was when I went over there and filmed that where the shooting was over there, and I went up to talk to the neighbors, and they said, well, I didn't see anything. No English. Oh, man, lots of stuff going on. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, the supreme physician in all the world, expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, great to be with you as always, Roy. Hope you had a nice Easter holiday.
Absolutely fabulous on that. I want to get to you because it broke a little bit on that. The Donald J. Trump and his famed cabinet, Merry Band of Warriors, or however you want to say it, redid the White House COVID website. And now it represents the truth, the facts, the science. Yeah, this thing started in the Wuhan lab. It was a lab leak. They haven't gone as far to say that it was intentional yet. But the CIA, like they said in 2017, are now, finally, we wiped out all the stupid Joe Biden stuff and this masking and the 6-foot distancing and the vaccines and all this. And they're saying, yeah, basically, your government was lying to you for 3 years. All these forces, here it is, Dr. Kelly Victory.
Yeah, as I said, if somebody hasn't gone to the whitehouse.gov website yet and looked at this document, it's quite extensive. I'll give you the Cliff's Notes. It reads like this. I told you so. Okay? This is everything, Roy, that I said from day one and took it on the chin for saying it. Everything from, as you said, the fact that this is now recognized clearly as a virus that came out of a lab. It was lab manipulated. We don't know if it was purposely released, but it clearly came out of the lab. It acknowledges that masks did nothing to stop the spread of a respiratory virus, that the concept of social distancing and the 6-foot rule was completely made up, that asymptomatic spread never existed, and then goes on. The thing that it doesn't acknowledge or doesn't get into as yet is the issue with the vaccines. But every other thing that we talked about, the fallacy of the need for a lockdown, the harm that we did to children, the fact that there was no risk to children and no justification for closing the schools, and on and on and on. So, yes, I have been vindicated, and many people who had suspected that things were not as being, the way that they were being presented was not truthful. We are now, seeing it in print. It's a little late. It's, April of 2025, and the damage has been done. The best we can, and by the way, I'm not standing by the mailbox waiting for the apology letter, but I suspect they won't be coming. But you have to, I'm making light of it, but in all reality, Roy, you have to think about it. I was one of a handful of people who were very vocal early on. I got hauled in front of the medical board 7 times. I had to defend my medical license in the state of Colorado, in the state of Ohio, in North Carolina, 7 different times for the things that I was saying, not for things that I was doing with patients, but for daring to go on shows like yours and Fox News and Newsmax and other news outlets and say things like, look, people, this is a lab-created virus. Look, people, masks don't work. I called, a spade with regard to the social distancing and the lockdowns and all of that. And they made my life a living hell. They tried to get my license revoked. There were people out there posting on social media that I was, a grandma killer and a baby killer, and I should, lose my license, never be allowed to practice medicine. And now, 5 years later, it's like, whoops, turns out that was all true. So, I don't expect an apology. The best we can hope for is that people now see it and will start to say, wow, we were lied to by our government. The CDC, the NIH, the FDA, and everybody in between was responsible for the misinformation that was being told, and ultimately perhaps hold those people accountable, if not legally, at least in the court of public opinion.
You mentioned about, you're on like a lot of like Fox and many other major networks in the beginning, and most of them, like trying to go after your medical license, you got thrown off of those too, of that. I say those major networks who basically were looking out for the dollar because most of them were getting the government dollars, and they said people like Kelly Victory are not going to be on. And, remembering the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules. So my proposal is, or what should be happening, is all those entities that kicked you and others off or would not broadcast what is now being known as the true science and the real things that were happening, you guys should all be front and center back on the air, not only reviewing this, but anytime anything else happens, they should not be putting back all the nattering nabobs of negativism and untruths that they stuck to us for 3 years, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think it'll happen, unfortunately. I hate to tell you, Roy, but, when I hear people say sort of, despondently, gosh, I don't know who to listen to anymore. I don't trust anybody. I'm saying, here's an idea. Listen to the people who got it right the last time. Okay? Listen to the people. Here's a pro tip. Don't go back to the blithering idiots and the talking heads and the mainstream media nincompoops who told you and repeated the band of lies that were coming out of the government. Listen to those people who had the guts, who had the tenacity and the foresight to say, look, I'm telling you the truth and I have nothing to gain. In fact, I had everything to lose. And as I said, it was a painful time because, you know, nobody gives you back those hours of your life that you spend defending yourself or the amount of money it takes to do it. I had nothing to gain and everything to lose, and I did it anyway. So, you know, my suggestion is when the next thing comes, and there will be a next thing, whether it's bird flu, you know, or RSV or whatever else they womp up, go to those people who got it right the last time, and hopefully, we're seeing things unfold in Washington right now. I have my doubts about some of the people who unfortunately have been put in positions of authority, including people like Marty McCreary, who absolutely, he was pro-vaccine, pro-masking, pro-lockdown, pro-school closure until the bitter end. And just now, you know, so there are some people who have been appointed in the current cabinet. Even Jay Bhattacharya was straddling the fence in the early, year or so of the pandemic. So I think you need to watch very carefully where people are now, but look back and see where were they during the early part of the pandemic when some of the rest of us were calling it, based on the truth and the true science, not based on what was politically expedient.
That said, I'm way more confident that if, and you're right, there always is something. There's going to be something come up of that. I'm way more confident this time, at least in the next 3.5 years, that we're not going to get hosed like we did, from 2020 to 2024. That was just way out of shape. I think with the Trump, and what gives me confidence is they put this, they basically refuted, and even Trump was in on the first part of this. He's refuting a lot of the stuff they did in the first, 7 or 8 months when he was still president, when this thing first broke, and he was kind of spouting some of that stuff. He's actually backtracking on some of the stuff they started, and then Joe Biden just took us right down the river, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree. And unfortunately, you and I have talked about this quite a few times. First of all, make it very clear, I am thrilled in general with what is going on in this new Trump administration. So I'm not trying to be critical. I'm very happy with what they've done. They came out of they hit the ground running, everything from the immigration issues to what they're doing at HHS. In general has been, on point. And we certainly will make a lot of headway, I'm sure, given how much they've done in the first few months. It's unfortunate that Trump has not been able to get his arms around what happened with the vaccine issue and has not been able to acknowledge that, frankly, he was led astray. He was misguided. He got bad information. There's absolutely no reason that a president should understand the intricacies of vaccinology or mRNA technology or anything else. He was lied to. He was led astray by people like Anthony Fauci, like, Deborah Birx, like Francis Collins, many of them who are in the mix there. And unfortunately, he has not been able to say, look, I listened to these people. Turns out I was misled, and we need to get those shots off the market, which is clearly what needs to happen. He is still looking at the vaccine program as one of his legacies from his first administration. I don't know if he will ever, get to the point where he understands exactly how badly that experiment went. But I think you are right. We are in a position where we won't likely fall for it again when the next thing happens, in part because of the people that he's put in place now.
Switching gears a little bit, the whole autism thing, and this is another thing that drives me nuts. Whatever, we got to figure out what is going on. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had, and they're always on his case about it, of that. Again, I don't know that he's 100% right in all his theories, but he's bringing up some excellent points like this. Hopefully we'll get it to play.
Not happening in people our age. But if it was better recognition, you'd see it in 70-year-old men. And I'll say this, I want to be very careful when I say it, because I've never seen a person with full-blown autism. I've seen many people with Asperger's and, on the spectrum who are my age. I've never seen anybody with full-blown autism. That means nonverbal, non-toilet trained. It's that you don't see these people walking around a mall because they don't exist in our age. The autism, this epidemic is only happening in our children. It's not happening in people our age. And if it was better recognition, you'd see it in 70-year-old men. And I'll say this, I want to be very careful when I say it because I've never seen a person with full-blown autism. I've seen many people with Asperger's and, on the spectrum who are my age. I've never seen anybody with full-blown autism.
That's a good point. You only see that if people are born with it, of that. So it isn't something like you get, it seems to me, and I mean, I'm no medical expert, but it seems like autism is not something like cancer that you can develop into later life or any other debilitating disease. We got to identify the problem of it, and it seems to be something that whatever is in the environment from where you're born at is where it's coming from. But what say you, Dr. Kelly?
Well, the point that I think Bobby was making there that's a very important one is to refute this ridiculous argument that there isn't actually an increase in the rates of autism. It's just that we, quote, have gotten better at diagnosing it. Because he's saying, well, if that's the case, where are all of the 60 and 70-year-old autistic people?
Yeah.
If it was always happening, where are they? And Bobby's right. They don't exist. It's not that we got, quote, better at diagnosing it or identifying it or something. That's preposterous. The reality is we are having an epidemic. There was nowhere near this rate of autism. It's not, that we got better at diagnosing it. And he's quite right that we've got to identify the problem. It is going to be an environmental issue, perhaps multifaceted. It probably is not one item by itself. It's going to be a combination of factors, but I think you would be crazy to believe that it's genetic. There's that sort of thing doesn't happen. You don't all of a sudden see a massive increase, the kinds of numbers we are talking about. You realize in the state of California, 1 out of 12 boys, 1 out of 12 4-year-olds has a diagnosis of autism in the state of California. Okay, elsewhere in the country, it's 1 out of 30, 1 out of 33, but in California, it's 1 out of 12 boys. We are in a world of hurt. Okay, granted, all of them aren't that, 25% that are nonverbal and cannot be toilet trained and will never live independently, but you're still talking about a massive issue. And I personally agree with Bobby that it is likely related in part to the frequency and the gross number of vaccines that we are giving our kids, largely because of the amount of aluminum that they are getting in those vaccines. There may be other contributors, including artificial dyes, artificial sweeteners, pesticides, insecticides, those sorts of things that people are exposed to. But it is, given the relationship between when kids develop this sudden onset of behavioral change, it is very commonly after they have received a vaccine. And we know that from thousands and thousands and thousands of reports from parents.
So those statistics you threw out about the difference between California and that. So if you're a boy in California, you're 2.5 times more likely to have autism than the other 49 states. That just seems inconceivable that it could be anything other than an external environment. Could be, maybe it's a fluoride in the water with vaccines or mixes with this or something, but that's got to be an external force, because why is it just showing up exponentially in California, not everywhere else?
And the theory is, and I will tell you, and I happen to believe it, is because California has the strictest childhood vaccine laws. They got rid of the personal exemptions, the religious exemptions. The only way that you can send your child to school in California without meeting all of the requirements on the childhood vaccine schedule is if you can document a medical necessity for the child not to be vaccinated. Every other state allows these other exemptions. So there are a much higher percentage of kids that end up getting all of those vaccines, which is 78 right now on the childhood schedule between birth and age 18, a much higher percentage get vaccinated in California than in other states. And I think that is likely a big contributor to the increased rates of autism in this state.
And then that's what you're going back to saying. It always seems to circle back to this vaccine thing. Like you're saying, well, okay, California, the nut cases we are out here, we start mandating it, 37 or whatever the number is, ridiculous amount you have to get just to get your kid into school. And now all of a sudden, after all this, now we have 2.5 times more or 2.5 more times your kid's going to have autism. I think that's what they call evidence, Dr. Kelly.
I agree. And as I said, I am the first to admit that these neuropsychiatric disorders, whether it's autism or autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, there's some overlap now between those syndromes. They are complex and they tend to be multifaceted in terms of what, the causal agents. But I, will be shocked if we don't ultimately prove the reality of that the vaccines are a big contributor. I think we talked about it in the past. Japan, for example, outlawed the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella combined vaccine in 1993. They still allow the individual vaccines, measles, mumps, and rubella to be given, but as individual injections, not in a combined vaccine the way we do here in the United States. When they made that change in 1993, they saw a precipitous drop in their rates of autism. Now, again, these are, correlation doesn't, necessarily mean causation, but the dots start to align, just how close do you need to put the dots before you can draw the picture, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I say. When you circle it all back, it all keeps, and that's what I think Bobby Jr. keeps pointing out is no matter which door he opens or goes through or closes and stuff, it all seems to be circling back around this. We got about a couple minutes left. Is there anything else on your radar screen we should know about?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I was thrilled to hear that Trump has proposed that he's going to rescind federal funding for NPR and PBS, the two, communist public broadcasting. Well, because right now, and he's talking about rescinding $1.1 billion worth of taxpayer money that is funding these two left-wing, they're supposed to be public broadcasting, but they promote nothing but liberal policies and liberal programming. And my viewpoint is you can hate me on your own dime. If you want to hate everything conservative, do it on your own dime because they are not presenting an equal and balancing. So I was very happy to see that. I'm happy to see the work that Bobby Kennedy is doing to remove the FDA's loophole on food additives that are been using the loophole called GRAS, generally regarded as safe, GRAS, which allows food companies to put items in that have not been fully tested. It was initially, the GRAS concept, generally regarded as safe, was supposed to include things like, salt and pepper and vinegar and things like, you don't have to, go through the FDA to add those items to a food product. But now it's been abused and then, companies are adding everything from artificial dyes and preservatives and food, flavorings and everything in between. So we now have, something, thousands of additional additives to food that have never been fully tested. And Bobby's certainly focusing on that as well.
When you said grass, it sounds like grass. So I just remind you, 420 day was yesterday. On the
Oh,
deal.
yes, it was. In fact, it fell on Easter.
That's what popped in my mind when you said that. You're a day late on the deal. Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do this again soon.
Talk soon. Thanks.
You got it. Bye. Dr. Kelly Victory, when she said that. Oh, man. So, well, you got to have a little fun anyway. You'll drive yourself totally insane. What a deal. We'll get through it all. As you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Toyota or Subaru, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships at the San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10 and 215 freeways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. Man, what a weekend. Cop shooting this, chainsaw, murder in trees, dudes punching each other out at the races, and all sorts of other things going on. And now we're starting to get the real truth and the science on COVID, thanks to Donald J. Trump. The Pope passed today, had a stroke. So I'm sure all the Catholics will be in mourning over that, and then they will see the white smoke come out. I think that is when they select a new pontiff. For that, so that was kind of apropos. The next day after is today's. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not up on all that sort of religious ritual stuff, thingies of that. Still think brighter days are ahead. We'll get this thing straightened out. Many more positives than negatives. That's the way you should look at it. We shall see. That'll do it for today. As we usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours wide. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was...
All right, Roy, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
You got it.